There is no God who demands worship. It is Satan who demands it. Satan craves it. He wants the entire world on its knees before him. To see Muslims, in their millions, on their knees at Mecca, Jews swaying back and forth and mumbling to themselves in front of the Wailing Wall, Christians clapping their hands, rolling their eyes and yelling hallelujah and amen is to see nothing but deluded legions of devil worshippers. These people are so alienated from themselves that they seem to view God as some sort of power-mad, egotistical tyrant. A Führer, a dictator at a Nuremberg rally. God is no such thing. He does not seek worship. Why would he? He does not want people on their knees before him. Why would he? He does not want prayers and hymns, confessions and sacraments, snake handling and speaking in tongues. Why would he? Is he some pathetic magician desperate for an audience? Is he the god of cheap tricks, stunts and snake oil? Is he a narcissist who always wants to stand center stage in the limelight? Christianity, Judaism and Islam are obscene. It is nauseating that so many people have been deceived and brainwashed into believing the most fantastic nonsense conceivable. The holy texts of these religions are books of the most shameful lies. They are designed to bring humanity closer to Satan, the supreme egotist. Every step in that direction is a step further from God. God, far from being alien to us, far from being a distant deity, is inside us all. Our mission is to find him within us, to release our inner divinity. It is not anyone else we should be worshipping, but ourselves. That is the great test with which we are confronted. Do we have the courage and knowledge to look to ourselves rather than others? Can we find our divine spark? That is the Holy Grail, the most sacred and spiritual object of all. Quest for the Holy Grail is the most difficult conceivable. Think of the world we live in. The ordinary person bows before the wealth and glamour of celebrities, the power of politicians, the money of business leaders. They don't just bow, they worship. It's the same formula as religion. We make ourselves slaves and then we stand in awe of our masters. Where do our masters want us? On our knees. Because then we are no threat to them. Then they can exploit us. We ought to be ashamed of ourselves. The great Satan lusts for worship, for earthly dominion. He seeks masses of slaves on their knees before him. His church on this earth is the old world order. They also lust after the worship of the people. We erect temples to them. We lionize them, canonize them, hero worship them. We tell them that they are better than we are, that they deserve so much more than we do. We allow them to reap vast rewards for their meager, selfish efforts. We don't complain. We don't protest. We don't object. We do nothing. In fact, we believe it is just that they should enjoy vastly more than the rest of us. Why? Because we hate ourselves. Because we are alienated from ourselves. We exist in a state of unhappy consciousness. Our mind is at war with itself. We project onto others the divinity in ourselves and then we worship those others. The old world order are not gods. They are greedy, vain, selfish egotists, drunk on self-love. Bono, lead singer of U2, campaigns against world poverty. Bono is one of the richest men on the planet. Shouldn't he be campaigning against himself? Why do we tolerate such disgusting hypocrisy? Why isn't this person laughed off the face of the earth? Saint Francis of Assisi came from a wealthy family, but gave up everything he owned to follow his religious calling. That is a man you can take seriously, a man you can respect. He was no hypocrite. He lived as a pauper and railed against wealth. He was almost excommunicated by the Pope for preaching his subversive message that was such a threat to the scandalous riches of the Vatican. If a person like that stood up and campaigned against world poverty, you would pay attention, but no one in their right mind would listen to a hypocrite like Bono. He is typical of the old world order. At the same time that they are reaching into our pockets to take our money, they are proclaiming how wonderful they are, and getting us to believe it. How stupid are we? We are stupid because we are self-alienated. We loathe ourselves. We have lost all sense of the divine spark within us. We are sunk in materialism. We are the lost, the damned, but it need not be that way. Don't worship others. Worship yourself. Find your inner divinity. Be as great as you can be. People will stop worshipping Satan when they see that no good God would ever want to be worshipped. All those who demand that you kneel and bow in the name of God are manipulating you. They are false prophets. God needs no praise. When the old world order asks you to worship them, don't. Stop living in the shadow of others. When you liberate your divine spark, you will never again stand in awe of another. If you are in any doubt that conventional religions are a sinister means of mass control, just look at any Islamic prayer session. At major Islamic mosques around the world you will see thousands upon thousands of bearded men, shoeless and wearing odd religious caps, on their knees, bowing and scraping, mumbling the words of the Quran that they have been forced to memorize from their earliest days. Muslims are required to pray 5 times a day and are even woken up from sleep in the middle of the night to perform one of their prayer sessions. Sleep disruption is a classic brainwashing technique. Muslim women are not allowed to pray with the men. They pray elsewhere, usually behind screens. They are typically clad in long black robes covering every part of their bodies. With many, only their eyes are visible. It is impossible to recognize one from another. These women are totally depersonalized, without one particle of individuality. They are the appendages of men, the private property of their husbands. They are not permitted to shake hands with other men, or let other men see their hair or faces. In some nations, they are forbidden from driving. They can't even stand in the same line to vote as men. They can be stoned to death for committing adultery, hanged for fornication. They have been made to feel like lepers. They are entirely alienated from their bodies, their appearance, their individuality. Yet you will hear them asserting that they are freer and better off than Western women. Such is the extent of the brainwashing to which they have been relentlessly subjected. When slaves proclaim slavery to be freedom, you can be certain that the control being exerted over them is absolute. Do not be under any illusions. Conventional religion is about one thing only: control. All the ceremonies of mainstream religion are designed to force you onto your knees, to compel you into postures of submission. They break your will, turn you into slaves and puppets of the old world order. Religion is a weapon of psychological warfare, expertly wielded by the masters of the old world order. A man on his knees cannot fight, cannot resist. Nietzsche described Christianity as a slave morality. That's exactly what it is. You would need to be a slave to buy into Christianity, Islam, or Judaism. The word Muslim means one who submits. You might as well have slave branded on your forehead. Islamic nations have proved backward in comparison with Western nations. Why? Because their ideology of submission removes the leadership, individuality, and creativity necessary for progress. Islam is not unlike communism, an ideology that destroyed progress and creativity by making everyone submit to the state. Submission is anathema. Even in the West, there is far too much submission, far too many slaves. Imagine a world full of meritocrats, high achievers reaching their full potential, rather than a world of slaves ruled over by a rich, privileged elite, a corrupt group of unworthy masters, the old world order. What greatness could such a world attain? Humanity has barely scratched the surface of its potential. Only when we eradicate slavery in all of its many manifestations can we advance to the next level. The 6,000 people who run the old world order give thanks every day that so many billions of people have fallen for the oldest trick in the book, the idea that if you make yourself the slave of God, you have somehow freed yourself. They will tell you that you have liberated yourself from fear, sin, and death, from Satan himself. Truth is the opposite. You have embraced the creed of Satan. You have made yourself into the living dead. Think of the Muslim fanatics who proudly proclaim, "We love death more than you love life." What is that if not the gospel of death, destruction, self-hatred, suicide, and madness? And these people regard themselves as good, healthy human beings, deserving of being welcomed into the presence of God. Which God would want such followers? These people are sick to the core of their being. Satan's hand grasps their hearts. Do not follow the gospel of death.